friends. I'm Karen, and this is the Family Food for Moms podcast. We're talking about inspiration for family cooking and dining. Today, we're going to talk about some things we can learn from nice restaurants about food and dining, things that we can apply at home without making it a huge, big effort, but still make our dinner times more special, more meaningful, more nutritious. Just the good things that restaurants can teach us. Certainly there are fast food restaurants and things that we wouldn't want to emulate. And secondly, we're not going to be able to create a restaurant at home. That's a lot more work than we have time and ability for. You'd need all the waiters and waitresses and all the chefs. But I just want to think about ways that we can apply some of the principles to make our own mealtime special. So firstly, one of the most important things, and something I find hardest probably, is the sitting down to enjoy the meal in a relaxed way, being present and not being preoccupied or distracted or busy. So when you go to a restaurant with your family, everyone expects to go and sit and chat and enjoy the time together, not have to do stuff, obviously like clearing plates and things. You expect it to be a time of chatting, of fellowship and connection, laughing. And so we've got to think about what helps to make that happen at home. So one of the things is the expectation that we're planning that. And it is obviously harder at home because there are dishes to clear, there's food to get, there's all kinds of things. But if we just set the expectation, maybe at every dinner meal, or if that's not possible, then at certain dinner meals, that we're going to just have a slow, relaxed, undistracted, unbusy, if that's a word, meal together. So maybe mentioning it to your family beforehand. I would need to give myself a pep talk. Like, I'm not going to get up for this. I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just going to let it go. I'm going to prepare as much as possible beforehand. And it's kind of a habit. I have to get out of the bad habit of jumping up all the time from the table, and I have to get into the good habit of relaxing and focusing on the people at the table. So a couple of things that help, I think, are the atmosphere. Restaurants are good at setting the atmosphere. So they'll have, especially nice restaurants, fancy restaurants, they'll have elegant music playing. They'll have a lovely table setting, elegant tablecloths, comfortable chairs, low lighting, anything that helps you to get into the right frame of mind. So maybe lowering the lighting if possible in your dining room, doing a good fancy table setting, or it doesn't have to be that fancy, but just nice. Add a few more knives and forks than usual, add 2 glasses perhaps, or fold your napkins in an interesting or fancy way. You can look on our YouTube channel for that. We got lots of napkin folding videos. Family Food for Moms channel on YouTube. So anything that improves the ambiance and the atmosphere of your meal time is great. Then, speaking of making the table look beautiful, restaurants are really good at attention to detail when they're presenting food. If you think of plating, they often use unusual plates, different shapes or colors of plates, and then the way they arrange the food on the plate is always special. A simple meal can be made to look really fancy and appealing with thoughtful presentation. So at home, we can think about how to arrange our food beautifully without it being a huge amount more effort than usual. So using a garnish, having different colors and textures, using whatever unusual plates you have at home, or maybe using a small bowl for a sauce or a side plate, or layering your plates and bowls on top of each other for the meal, like the dinner plate with the side plate on top and then the soup bowl on top of that. Anything that helps the meal go from ordinary to special. You can use a a food ring or even a cookie cutter circle to arrange your rice or your mashed potatoes. So you put it inside the ring and then you lift the ring off and it's left behind on the plate in a circular shape. Sprinkling some fresh herbs on afterwards. You can put an edible flower on your plate. You can do a sauce or a puree that you put on the plate before the meat that is smeared on with a spoon or something, and then carefully place the protein on top. All of those are kind of fun to play around with, and then they really help make it special. Also, restaurants are really good at clearing the dirty plates often. In fact, sometimes too often when you're trying to have a conversation. But it's a good strategy to get rid of the dirty plates regularly. So you could have one or two of your kids just clear the things that are dirty as they're used. And you don't have to spend a lot of time in the kitchen. Just stack them, and then later you can have a relaxed time of cleaning up while you chat. But it's good to get those dirty dishes away from the table and then to stay at the table and play a game or to have a conversation or anything just in between courses. Restaurants can also teach us about breaking up meals into courses. There would be appetizers, mains, and desserts. Breaking up your meal into courses really helps you to relax and take your time with a meal. You can just take the vegetable part of the meal and have that first on a little side plate, and then perhaps the protein and sauce, and then a little dessert. And it spreads out the meal. You can have good conversation in between. It reminds you that you're not in a hurry. It's easier to plate things in an elegant way. And it gives you more time to prepare each part of the meal. So having courses doesn't have to be a huge amount more effort, but it can just be breaking up your meal into courses. Then restaurants often have fresh vegetables, fresh meat, local ingredients that they've sourced, and it really helps to maximize flavor and nutrition. The dishes taste fresher. It keeps your cooking varied throughout the year. So if you have any markets that you can go to, or just try to eat your vegetables in season, and then just having fresh ingredients on your plate, whether it's a garnish or whether it's some salady things that you either have as an appetizer or on the side, those are really helpful. Then sauces, I think, really elevate dishes. Restaurants are really good at having sauces, whether it's a meat sauce that you make to put over the steak, or a cheese sauce, a mushroom sauce, one of the fancy French sauces. Also salad dressings, anything that can enhance the protein that you're having, or even perhaps over the vegetables. Lemon butter sauce on fish. And then instead of serving it on the food, you can put an elegant little dish to the side with the sauce in. Or, as I said before, you can put the sauce on the plate in an elegant way and then place the protein on top. So all of those things add to the elegance of the meal. And of course, they're delicious and hopefully add some nutrition too. If you're doing a roast and you do gravy from the broth that you had in the crock pot, that really adds to the nutrition of the meal. Restaurants also teach us about the importance of seasoning correctly and then taste balancing. So we need to make sure we have enough salt, perhaps using herbs, spices, and acidic mediums like lemon juice to enhance our dishes. So it's important when we're cooking to taste as we go, and then not be afraid to adjust the seasoning at the end. For example, making a simple meal like bolognese with pasta, you want to make sure your bolognese is well seasoned and tastes good. You want to make sure that your pasta even is well seasoned, perhaps with a bit of salt and olive oil or some parmesan, because if the parts taste good separately, they'll taste good together. Salt brings out the flavors, as does lemon or something like apple cider vinegar or balsamic vinegar. Fresh herbs will bring out flavors. And learning about what herbs complement certain vegetables is also so helpful. like basil leaves or basil pesto goes great with tomatoes. Then balancing dishes, chefs are so good at this. So there's the richness, the lightness, the bitter, sweet flavors, the sour, the salty, and they bring those all together in the best way. So this is not so easy at home without experience, but I think as you practice and try things, you can come up with some really great stuff. Like if you've got a rich cream sauce, adding a tiny bit of vinegar might help, or a bit of lemon juice. Fresh parsley adds a great flavor to soup. A little bit of chili powder enhances a lamb stew. So these are things you can get from recipes and tips that go with recipes, and just from your own experimenting and experience. Then this next point goes along with the first point, and that would be mindful eating. In many fancy restaurants, especially those with chefs tasting menus, the focus is on savoring each bite and really appreciating the craftsmanship behind each dish. So while you're eating, and you can teach your family this too, think about what the flavor is like. Enjoy the textures, the balances of flavor. Look at the colors of the food and appreciate those. And just enjoy the way it looks and the way it tastes. And this will really enhance your enjoyment of the meal. Then restaurants also teach us about experimentation or being creative with our food. Some restaurants really go far with their creativity. Like there's a restaurant where the chef creates the dessert on the table by throwing, well, first they put down a cloth specifically for this, and then throwing pieces of chocolate or breaking a container of chocolate over the table, and then they drizzle different melted chocolate and other dessert sauces, and they really make an artistic picture with the dessert. So we don't have to go that far. I know sometimes people like to do a clam and corn dinner, or a pasta and bolognese dinner where they put all the food on the table on a plastic cloth. So they kind of create the meal down the middle of the table by laying down the spaghetti and then laying down the meatballs and then spooning the sauce on top, and everybody takes some of that for their own meal. So I've never done that, but there's no limit to your creativity when you're cooking. So try new things, try new flavor combinations, try new ingredients that you haven't used before, different recipes, see what you can come up with. Another thing I think restaurants are really good at, because they have to be, is the assembly line of the food. So there'll be the chef and the sous chef, and then they have a whole system for plating the food, and they do it exactly the same way every time. So they know that dish well. They've pre-cooked or pre-chopped pieces of it that they'll need, and then the chef will cook the main protein and the sauce gets added, and everything is assembled in this pre-planned way at the front before it's sent out. So I like that, taking control of a dish and deciding this is the parts of it that we're going to use on the plate, and then deciding who's going to do what, or what's going to be pre-prepared, and then just setting it up and making that dish a little more fancy. So prepping part of the meal in advance is really helpful, whether it's the vegetables or the sauce, or some part of the meal that is pre-chopped so that when you want to cook it at the time, it's much faster. So all these things really help to make our meal elegant, to make it tasty, to make it enjoyable and relaxed. And that's the goal. It's not to make it more difficult, more complicated, or to take more time, but it's to make it more enjoyable and more relaxed by planning more and having an idea in your mind what you want to achieve, and then getting your kids and your family to help you so that you can all enjoy it together. So maybe start with one meal that you set up specifically to be a restaurant-style meal where it's a bit more elegant. There's a bit more thought going into the plating of the food, etc. And then if you enjoy that, you can see what takeaways you can apply to your other meals. So have fun and don't put pressure on yourself, but enjoy the process. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next time.